Hello again, Nick Leifker here, and welcome again to GMGT 590 Operations Management. We left off by talking about MRP, Materials Requirements Planning. And I said before that it's nice information. We know what parts we need at what times and in what quantities. As it turns out, this is very useful information to some people, specifically marketing people. After all, they have customers that they want to keep happy with these parts and products. And we have capacity planning people. They want to know how much capacity we need for this particular process. And if we're going to get capacity planning people involved, that also means we're going to get finance people involved because if we're going to spend money, you always have to get finance involved. So these aspects of manufacturing led to what's known as MRP2, Manufacturing Resource Planning. The idea is that you take the information from original MRP, Materials Requirements Planning, and you have other people within the business have access to this information. You have people within marketing have access to this information so that they can get together with clients. You have people involved with capacity planning who have access to this information so that they can plan how to improve the process. And of course, finance, because if people are going to spend money, finance wants to know about it. So you have MRP that's acting as an engine here, providing the math for decision making for other parts of the company, other aspects of the company. Well, this proved to be a remarkably revolutionary idea that parts of the company that weren't speaking to each other otherwise now all of a sudden have information that is important, even critical, to their objectives, to their goals. So, you have an idea that's about to make waves, make some changes. Because if we're sharing this information, this materials requirements planning information, what's to stop us from sharing other information that's useful to other parts of the business? It is from this concept, this idea that different parts of the business can and should be able to share information if it is useful to those other parts of the business, that led to what we call ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning Software. Now, chances are, if you have any decent amount of experience out in the business world, you probably saw those three letters and started saying a few words that probably would not be polite words to say in mixed company. Because ERP software, ERP implementations, in general, tend to be frustrating on the companies that perform them. And we'll explain why in a minute. But ERP, well, a good way of thinking about it. MRP, Materials Requirement Planning, is kind of like a person spending Friday night alone, just by themselves doing nothing. MRP2 is like hanging out with a few friends, just a nice, quiet get together, a few people getting together. ERP is like a party. Everybody comes. Everybody brings friends to come. The idea of ERP is that anyone who can use this information, that is either a part of the business or is attached to the business somehow, should be able to share in that information. Now, it's a beautiful idea. It's an awesome idea. But it can cause more headaches than anything else. And we'll see why in just a minute. But again, the idea of ERP software is that you have one software entity that encompasses the entire company, that ties together the entire company. So again, the essence of ERP. You have all of the company's information in one place, one resource, where anyone in the company who needs that information, as well as others in the supply chain, can use that information. Now, it's a lofty goal. It's beautiful if it works. But companies, and in one case a government, have found themselves in some serious trouble trying to implement it. Now, to understand why ERP is so difficult to implement, the first thing you need to understand is this. IT projects, always fail at the interfaces. In fact, most processes fail at the interfaces, and there's a reason why. There's always this aspect of translation between one step in a process and the next, between one part of a project and the next, between one computer system and the next. In the case of an ERP project, what an ERP project has to do is it has to be able to communicate with multiple computer systems and have those computer systems communicate with each other. So each of these computer systems, they store data in their own way, they calculate data in their own way, they disseminate data in their own way. In essence, they speak their own language. So what an ERP system is asked to do is to act like the United Nations. They have to translate for all of these different systems, each of which speaks their own language. This is not an easy thing. Now, there are some things that complicate this. For instance, IT decisions are almost always made at the divisional level. In other words, sales will want their computer system that speaks their language that best suits their needs. Finance wants their computer system that deals with data their way, that suits their needs. HR wants their computer system that suits their people their way with their needs. And what ERP has to do is take all of these diverse computer systems, each of which speaks their own language, and not only communicate with them, but get them communicating with each other, fluently communicating with each other. This is a lot easier said than done. If you have to ask computer systems from different divisions, different companies, different entities to speak together fluently, chances are there's going to be problems. Going on, there are multiple costs of ERP. Only some of them relate to the computer system itself. Integration and testing, data conversion, data analysis, all of these are forms of translation. All of these are forms of trying to get this data working together. Try to get these different computer systems working together so that everything is on the same page, so that all of these different modules, all of these different parts of the ERP system are working together. Training. Whenever you have a new system, you have to train people on the new system. This takes time, this takes money. Sometimes to train people, and sometimes to get this implementation going, you have to hire consultants. You have to hire outside people to come into the company and help you out through this transition into this ERP system. Well, as for consultants, guess where they come from? Usually they come from successful ERP rollouts somewhere else. In other words, be prepared to lose some IT staff because they successfully have this ERP rollout. They can put that on their resume, and they can become consultants themselves. Other things, dedicated implementation staff. This is a lot more involved than most people realize. You see, all too many companies think once it's rolled out, once the ERP system's rolled out, everything's good, everything's spiffy, everything's awesome, and everyone can go back to what they did. You see, with an ERP rollout, you need representatives from each department, from each area, to be involved with the ERP rollout to make sure that their part of the system works. Well, just because an ERP system is rolled out doesn't mean that it's the end. Problems always occur. Problems will always come up. And what happens if a problem comes up with an ERP system? You go back to the people who implemented it, ask them what's up, and they are the ones who have to address the problem, who have to see what's wrong and how to fix it. Other issues, slow return on investment. All too often, expectations with regards to ERP systems are unrealistic. People expect to have all of these great savings right away as a result of implementing this ERP system, and frankly, nothing could be further from the truth. You're not going to get really good results from an ERP system until several years down the road, until it's fully integrated into the fabric of the company. And of course, the last thing is you have a new system. People don't know how to use the new system. As a result, people are going to take more time using the new system for a while than they did using the old system. This is why it takes time for an ERP system to become cost effective. So, a lot of different costs involved with ERP, a lot of different headaches involved with ERP. So, in conclusion, what ERP does is it integrates the business. Instead of each division working with its own software, its own data, its own system, ERP allows communication between each of the different parts of the business. Communication of information, communication of ideas between each of the different parts of business, so that analyzing that data between parts of the business is possible, is doable, is feasible. It streamlines a business, it optimizes a business, and eventually, assuming that the rollout works, eventually it will save the company money. However, getting there can be a challenge. Companies have spent millions of dollars on unsuccessful ERP rollouts and had nothing to show for it at the end. Other companies have had a successful ERP rollout, but they didn't see the dividend from that rollout for years. So, overall, ERP, it's a great tool, it's a great business idea, but just know that the difficulty is far greater than expected because it's kind of hard to get all of these different computer systems to talk to each other, and that there are costs involved with ERP rollouts that are not immediately apparent. Thank you.